The next speaker is going to speak about getting real building performance evaluation in the Indian context. The topic was of great interest to the research scholars and building performance evaluators to gain insights for refining the underlying methods and process of conducting further BPE studies in the context of India. Our speaker is the director of the multidisciplinary Oxford Institute for Sustainable Development and Low Carbon Building Research Group at Oxford Brookes University. He holds a senior professional chair in sustainable architecture and climate change. His research interests lie in evaluating building performance from a socio-technical perspective, smart local energy systems, local energy mapping, scaling up energy retrofits, and climate change adaptation. As principal investigator, he has received lots of grants to investigate in these subjects. He is the director of the International Passive Low Energy Architecture Network. He was a scientific chair of the International Architectural Association conference held in IIT Roorkee. It gives me immense pleasure in welcoming Professor Rajat Gupta.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to deliver this keynote at this international conference on built environment science and technology. I'm pleased to be here and to be giving this keynote. So I want to talk a bit about getting real in terms of looking at actual building performance evaluation in the Indian context. Relatively less has been done in this area to date, and I want to reflect upon the implications of looking at actual performance of buildings as opposed to looking at predicted performance using our models. So I run the Low Carbon Building Research Group, and I'm also lead for the Oxford Institute for Sustainable Development in Oxford Brookes University. We have a range of themes that we address through our research, whether it's low carbon or low energy mapping, looking at low carbon refurbishments in terms of both advanced refurbishments and also scaling up retrofits at neighborhood city scale. We've developed a lot of local energy mapping approaches for this. We also look at smart local energy systems research and low carbon communities, focusing also on climate change adaptation of buildings and neighborhoods. So looking at climate resilience. A key area of our work is looking at care settings and the older population at the moment. We're also heavily involved in measuring indoor air quality and productivity in buildings. A core part of our work is looking at building performance evaluation and post-occupancy feedback from buildings. We've done numerous studies, probably covering more than 500 buildings now internationally. And that's what I would like to reflect upon. I'm also leading a lot of research in India in terms of sustainable buildings. Recently, we finished a project called Marship with TERI and Development Alternatives, as well as UN Habitat in India. And Marship is really a project which is looking at mainstreaming sustainable social housing in India. And we've developed a new sustainability assessment tool and a decision support toolkit for housing developers and government agencies to be able to design and deliver sustainable social housing in India. Because as you know, there's going to be an explosion of housing under the Housing for All initiatives, and it definitely needs to be sustainable. For the first time, I think we also conducted resident surveys at large scale across some of these social housing developments. And we gathered some data on lived-in experiences of residents. There's a website, you can get a lot of information there. The other project I'm doing is called Reside, which is a 5-year project with partners in Jaipur and Hyderabad. And essentially, this is looking at residential building energy demand reduction in India. We are looking at all aspects of residential energy use, right from the form, the building envelope, looking at appliances inside, and most importantly, occupant behavior. We're developing protocols for post-occupancy evaluation for housing as part of the project and providing for the first time a large knowledge base for the residential energy code and its improvement and evaluation. As part of the project, we'll be monitoring about 2,000 homes across all climatic zones in India, looking at their energy and environmental performance, as well as contextual data, and then building models both at community level and at dwelling level. And this project is continuing. Again, there's a website there for you. The project I'd like to focus on today is called Learn BPE, which is a project which is with CEPT University in India. And until recently, we were running the project. It's just finished. And we aim to develop, as part of the project, new knowledge, tools, and skills for evaluating the actual performance of green buildings in India. And again, there's a website, but most of this presentation going forward is going to focus on Learn BPE project. But you're welcome to look at other projects that are there as well. So in terms of outlines of presentation, I'm going to be looking at, firstly, why do we evaluate building performance in India, with a focus on green buildings to start with, because green buildings will have better documentation of design intent, usually because you have to produce all those design reports. We also want to then look at a bit of what the project is about, do an expert look at the expert survey that we did, the framework that we developed for doing building performance evaluation, what we learned from the case studies, and some final thoughts for you to take away. So firstly, why evaluate building performance in the Indian context? As you know, and you might be surprised for the Indian context, is that India is actually the second country in the world with the largest registered green building footprint. I think US has the most footprint registered in terms of green buildings. So India is also the fourth country with largest LEED registered footprint. And there are lots of targets, and one of them is this thing to reach about 5.3 billion square feet in 15 years. So there's explosion of new buildings. But the gap we find in India is that there is very little information and data and insights available for actual energy performance, actual data on occupant experiences, and most importantly, indoor environmental quality. And we don't know whether green buildings are doing better than conventional buildings. We don't have that data. Of course, all that has come to the fore with COVID, where we spend more time now in buildings, and of course, ventilation and other aspects of the indoor environment in building now matter, not just for comfort but also health and well-being. So in India, you have a range of green rating systems. Most of them are, lacking post-construction verification and certification and in-use compliance. The GREHA, the indigenous system that we have, does include some aspects of energy and water systems performance assessment, but it's not a kind of a mandatory requirement like in LEED, which also has an optional credit path. So this is a good start, definitely, that some of these rating systems are doing for verifying design intent. But because it's not mandatory, this can be limited. And as I said before, there's very little published data on these findings. And I think that's one of the major issues that we have to kind of address. Building performance evaluation itself, what does it really mean? It's really an approach which is very empirical and evidence-based and based in the real world. It uses social science and building science techniques to test and monitor, in combination with social science methods on surveys and interviews with occupants, to really evaluate how buildings perform in practice and detect any issues in their design or their construction or their commissioning or their handover or their operation. And essentially, findings from such studies can help to fine-tune building performance, meet design targets, improve occupant satisfaction, and also close the gap between simulation and reality. It's not easy to do because your lab is really the real world. There are lots and lots of dynamic factors at play because you can't control all the variables. So you need a lot of multidisciplinary approaches to be able to do a good building performance evaluation. So this is where we come in. We designed the Learn BPE research initiative as a UK-India collaborative project funded through Newton Fund. And the main aim of the project was to develop new knowledge, tools, and skills amongst researchers, students, practitioners, engineers, architects, to be able to evaluate actual performance of green buildings to start with in India and validate these through student-led field studies. We were passionate that we get master's level students to look at actual building performances as part of their dissertations and build this kind of evidence base. Just to stress, I'm not just talking about green buildings only. You can apply the methods to any building. It doesn't really matter. Uh, it's, as I said, it's Oxford Brookes University and CEPT University leading it. We also had a series of industry partners, Terry, Terraveris, Edifice, and Ashray in India was also a partner in the project. We've produced a lot of outputs and they are available. So I would welcome you to visit our website and download some of the papers, and you can see the final report as well that's published there. We were very pleased that while the project was ongoing, our kind of professional body called SIPSI, which is the Building Service Engineers body, took on the Learn BPE publications and produced another paper on that to talk about this new approach that we had developed called IBPE for the Indian context. And I'm going to tell you all about that. But before I go in, I just want to touch a bit on the expert survey that we did as part of the project when the project started to find out about building performance evaluation in India. So essentially, we did an online survey to gather expert opinion about the barriers and drivers for implementing building performance evaluation in India through formal and continued education, because we think those are probably the first outlets of BPE, given the innovation involved in this research area. We invited them, so these were 68 expert respondents, and most of them, represented the composite climate and warm humid climate of India, which probably covers most of the geography. And you can see that they had, most of them had quite a few years of experience in green building, energy efficiency. So it was more of a Delphi kind of exercise, which was done with 68 respondents to get their view. So very informed audience from different parts of India. 65 of the 68 respondents agreed that BPE is necessary in India, which is really interesting because until Learn BPE, there was relatively less work on building performance evaluation in India. 50 of them provided the reasons why, and clearly validation of design comes across as one big reason. Energy performance comes across another reason to verify, energy performance, whether it's, happening as predicted, and also then improving design process. But I think the key thing here to note are the barriers to embedding this in education. And we asked them this question, that what were the barriers in embedding this into architectural and engineering education? And obviously, the first one was there was lack of trained people to teach BPE. So, that's where really our project comes in, because, we are kind of passionate about getting this into the curriculum and the faculty of different colleges also getting trained in BPE. Of course, there are other things like lack of availability of case studies, lack of professional interest, lack of funds to purchase tools, and others as well, like regulatory limitations, lack of kind of background physics courses, because you need a bit of building physics knowledge for doing building performance evaluation. But they were very interesting at the start of the project to know these barriers and which ones we could really address. We also asked them about BPE methods, because you can have a lot of methods in building performance evaluation, to see which ones were they considered to be very important. And you can see here that some of them, come out really high in terms of energy monitoring. That's considered really high. Looking at systems installation, that people thought that is important to see how well energy systems are working. Looking at design and construction audit first, so looking at review of what the design and construction information there is, what were the design targets, and also gathering environmental data and occupant surveys. And that is really interesting that these bits come in. You can imagine that air tightness testing is not that popular in India, because buildings are really not that airtight and should not be, given the climatic conditions. So we took these kind of methods, this learning from the surveys, and then kind of assess these barriers that we had to kind of look at for fostering BPE in academia and practice. Whether this was lack of policy initiatives, because you do need some kind of, you need a market pull, but you also need a, policy push as well. There are these barriers. Industries obviously shy of exposing themselves to liability risks. Professionals don't want their work to be judged. It's expensive, and you may not have the necessary skills. Hopefully, our project addressed to some extent. Time and resource, obviously, fees there may be costs. You might have changed the design construction brief to integrate building performance evaluation. You might have to make changes in architectural or engineering curricula, or even identifying suitable buildings. Because remember, building performance evaluation is not about building models or running simulations in your office. It's about going into buildings, getting your hands dirty, studying the energy performance, the environmental performance, the experience of occupants in those buildings, taking all that physical data with social science data, bringing it together and making sense why certain buildings are doing well. Is it because of the building related factors about the design, the form, or the construction, or is it more softer aspects? Is it because people are managing it well? Is it about managing energy use? Is it about experiences of users? And you need to differentiate between the building factors and the people factors, whether the building is working or not. Uh, Before we go into case studies, it's important to set the framework so that that can be used, for any studies in India. And we published this paper in BRI journal, which looked at customizing performance evaluation approach for the Indian context. And it's downloadable freely. It's open access, so you can download it. But what's really interesting is that when we looked at this paper and got this framework published, it's been, I think, downloaded more than 3,000 times now. Must be more number. And this framework has become quite popular because what we've said here is a very open and flexible framework that as part of the building performance evaluation, there are 5 elements that need to be included. Some form of review of design intent. So where are you coming from? What's the baseline? Or what's the context? Then a technical building survey to look at the building quality and services. Energy assessment, for example, looking either through meter readings or energy bills or even continuous monitoring if you have a BMS. Environmental monitoring, so you look at temperature and relative humidity, and other indoor air quality measures, maybe in terms of indoor environmental quality as well. And then gathering feedback from occupants, whether that's through a survey or that's through which is an established survey building use studies or others. And it's running over different levels from level 1 to level 4. And level 1 is the kind of basic level, and level 4 gets more complicated in terms of time and expertise required. So it offers somebody flexibility to use different levels to deliver different study elements. And you may do all 5, you may do a few, but at least you have a framework that you can follow. And then we applied this framework to different case studies, and you can see the highlighted bits of what we had done. So it's not necessary to do all levels for all study element. You can pick and choose, and choose these different elements. And this can differ from different case studies depending upon access, depending upon the objective of the study and resources involved, as well as your own kind of capacity to do the study. So we feel this is quite a flexible framework that can be used for doing building performance evaluation studies in India or elsewhere. So in order to embed BPE in academia and practice, we kind of ran a lot of events as well, because there's no good in kind of developing technical stuff, but not kind of training. So we had train the trainer workshops, we had summer winter schools, we had classroom-based courses. So both in the UK and in India, we ran building performance evaluation modules, and we taught about 15 to 20 postgraduate students as part of that for 2 years. We also had dissertations for kind of 6 months studies, where we had a lot of dissertations that were done as part of the study, which actually led to all the studies that I'm going to talk about. And there you see, us running. These are kind of students of Brooks and SEPT University doing some of the studies. We ran, the sessions in Delhi. This is in Terry. This is in Jaipur, in one of the institutions there. We, in the end, had about 8 students who studied these 10 case studies that I'm going to talk about, 6 of which from Oxford Brookes, 2 are from SEPT University, looking at all these sustainable buildings. And I'm sure you recognize some of these buildings. They're pretty well known. We looked at 10 green building case studies across India. This is probably one of the larger data set of green building performance. I mean, actual performance, not model performance, covering different climatic zones. So we covered all the major climatic zones, I would say: hot and dry, warm and humid, and of course composite. We have documented about 1,000 occupant surveys along with monitoring data. So again, this is probably a large data set. and it's looking at doing occupant surveys through building use studies data. So it's a very robust data set. Uh, so what were the insights from the case studies? I don't have time to go through every case study, so I'll try and give you some overarching findings and end with some final thoughts, because I think there are some nuggets of wisdom probably to take from there. So here were the case studies. I'm not going to name any of them, but there were these 10 case studies. 6 were office buildings, all designed to either LEED Platinum, LEED Gold, or 5-star IGBC, or 5-star Griha. And then you had 1 university campus building and 3 residential complexes. So again, it's one of the very few studies which has looked at the actual performance of so-called green rated homes in India. And we managed to do that, across all the 3 climates: warm and humid, composite, and hot and dry. Just to give you the energy assessment, I'm sure you want to know what happened to these buildings. So looking at the non-residential energy, kind of energy use of these offices and university buildings, you can see most of them. So if you look at this bar, the dark colored bar is the grid electricity, the black is where you had some diesel generation, and the yellow is PV generated electricity. So I've put it here because, I want to give the total energy footprint. Of course, whatever electricity was exported is not there, and that's been taken off. So if you look at, comparing these offices against the energy conservation building code for non-domestic buildings in India for different climatic zones, you can see they're doing better. So, all the dark ones, the light ones are the benchmarks, and the dark ones, are the case studies. Apart from 1 or 2, where one of them, Office 5 is actually doing much worse, whereas Office 6 is actually same as the benchmark, and the university campus building is probably doing the best. It has a very low kind of carbon footprint and energy use. But you can see that, you can start to see different buildings against this EPI, kilowatt hours per square meter per year. We also had similar things for the residential projects. So these are 2 residential projects. There are 53 dwellings and flats within there. And again, we're looking at this. There are 2 complexes, one in hot and dry, the other in warm and humid. And you can see the mean EPI is around 35 kilowatt hours per square meter per year, but the range is very wide. And that is what you would probably expect. If I did the study in UK as well, you would, domestic buildings tend to have a larger range. So you need to look at the median and mean as well. So to give you context, 35 kilowatt hours per square meter per year is probably quite good. And it could be improved, but, if you internationally look at it, comparing with the conventional buildings, it's doing much better. But again, it's important to start to look at energy use in this way, both normalized by area, but I also think we should normalize energy usage by number of occupants. So you also have, a certain unit of kilowatt hours per occupant. Then just to give you some, flavor of what happened in terms of our monitoring, because we were monitoring these buildings in terms of their indoor temperature, relative humidity, and even CO2 levels, which is a good indicator of ventilation levels. So most of them, it's not bad news, actually. They had well-maintained acceptable temperatures, and you can look at that. They usually stay, below 30 degrees, which is quite good in India, usually around 24, 25. Some spaces we found were overly cooled or too warm as compared to the ISHRE standards, which actually cross-related well with the occupant perception. So there was this overcooling happening, I think, in Indian buildings, especially the ones that are tightly controlled, which can be kind of reduced, and energy savings would happen. We also found there's relatively less in terms of sensors and building control, because I think what the buildings really also need is, once they are built properly and they are being managed well, you also need some kind of a control system now to keep that management going. So whether it's sensor driven, where it's possible, and where you can kind of reduce the usage of air conditioning, and wastage certainly should be encouraged, and overcooling, and even overheating should be provided. Although I think you can say that given the climate in India, overcooling is probably a bigger issue now. In terms of humidity, we found that in most of the spaces, it was okay. It was below 70%, between 50 and 70, which is what you would expect and like to have. But in certain parts, we were finding with relatively less ventilation, there was quite high humidities. And I think it's worth kind of thinking about that in terms of dehumidification in these buildings, because we don't want to have high humidities going above 80% or around 80%, because that can encourage mold growth as well, and probably it's not good for other things health wise. CO2 levels were generally good across the buildings. This is an example of an office where we were monitoring different floors CO2 levels inside. And as compared to what I've seen in other countries, I think CO2 levels are stay quite good, below 800. Buildings are usually well ventilated, but where you get a large number of people in a room, we could see that CO2 levels are rising. So maybe the ventilation strategy needs to be customized for occupancy demands, because what you don't want, and given the kind of COVID and pandemic time we live in, ventilation of spaces has become of paramount importance, of course. Then occupant perception is an interesting one. In the non-residential buildings, we were using bus surveys, and bus, if you don't know, has a scale of 1 to 7, where 1 is unsatisfactory and 7 is satisfactory. And you essentially measure occupant perception of their indoor environment. So we found that majority of them were satisfied with their overall air quality, across all seasons. And we found that, the green means it's doing better than the bus benchmark. And it's also, of course, towards satisfactory. So it's doing well. And most of them were satisfied with the overall temperature. There were some things about winter temperature, which comes up quite a bit. And I think what's happening is that most of the buildings in India are being designed to keep the heat out in summer, which is probably the predominant fact, reverse of what happens in UK. But at the same time, in the composite climate, you do have quite a cold cold season in terms of a few months being very cold. And I think that's where probably indoor temperatures, are not up to satisfactory levels. But overall, the green buildings were perceived to contribute to healthier and more productive environments and were better than the benchmark. Again, in the residential side, when you kind of look at, the survey results, you find, there are interesting things that are coming up in terms of the winter air quality. Again, it's not as good in winter indoor temperature, but the summer one was okay. And I think that's something again here to be kind of reflect upon, that we need to be designing housing and non-residential buildings to work in the summer and in the winter. Otherwise, you will not have satisfaction rates that are continuously okay. But people do, perception of health is probably still quite high. It would be interesting to repeat this post-pandemic, or and see how that's changed, because that would be interesting when people have spent more time in their homes. So what are the final thoughts? I think I'd like you to go away from the presentation with certain reflections on what we have learned, besides the case studies, because the case studies are great and they provide a lot of evidence. But I think it's important to reflect upon, what is the future for building performance evaluation for India, and what are the lessons? I think first, the context in India is different to other countries, because there's fewer documentation of design decisions. There's larger degrees of freedom during construction to change design specifications. There's also an issue of supply chain, that you're going to get fewer tested and certified products in construction. There's less formalized building operation, and there's limited access to monitoring equipment. So BP has to operate in this context. It's not a context which is going to be definitely data rich and will have access to expensive monitoring. It's probably true for many other countries as well, but especially for India. Again, in the UK context, most of the buildings are heated, but in India, it's going to be mixed mode. So you're going to have the building largely running as free running or with some fans. And with some months, you're going to have air conditioning. And the use of air conditioning will certainly not be constant throughout the year in majority of the buildings. So it's vital to conduct these building performance evaluation studies in both air conditioning and naturally ventilated modes to see how the building operates as per outdoor conditions, and not just one kind of one mode. And that needs to be kept in mind when such studies are done as to which mode the building is operating in. The prevalence of energy performance gap, which is pretty dominant across the world, which is essentially the difference between design intent and actual performance, did not seem to be significant in India. And that might be because of two reasons. We are kind of now just hypothesizing what it could be. That could be because expected performance goals of green buildings tend to focus on asset performance and sometimes don't address the dynamics of operation. So you're looking at more on the building geometry and system and less on the set points, on the occupancy schedules. And but we feel that going forward, this difference between asset performance and operational performance could enlarge this performance gap. Because if you think of the model, you're making assumptions about set point, mode of operation, and occupancy schedules. And because in reality, the way the building is run in Indian context may be much more significant, may be different to what the model assumes. And that might expand this gap. So, it's not there yet that much, but it may come in very quickly and may have a higher magnitude as well. So that must be kept in mind. And the message for policymakers is that as more number of houses are going to be delivered, more number of buildings are going to be delivered in India, building performance evaluation should really become part of that housing delivery. It should not be seen as an add-on, I think, because the design team, the construction team, and even the client has got a lot to benefit from this. I think the other thing to be kept in mind is we must have sub-metering arrangements designed into buildings which are not readily available. So, we had to do multiple walkthroughs. We needed to do, a lot of visits. There were, photographs, video surveys done to provide contextual data to this researcher. You can imagine it's quite difficult to do during the pandemic time, which was these studies were done before. But going forward, if that infrastructure is inbuilt into the delivery of buildings and the data streams are coming through, you can do a lot of intelligence and analysis using that. Multiple levels of permissions are required, in the Indian context we find. So we need to have monitoring plans which are flexible and agile, because it needs to be have the ability to be customized. And although we used imported questionnaires, BUS, which required some modifications, you couldn't use them as such. You had to have some climate cultural considerations. And the other thing to keep in mind is not just a questionnaire, it's how you do it. Now, in the UK context, or when I was in the US, we used to kind of just drop off and collect the questionnaire, because the people would fill in and we could just collect it. That doesn't happen in India. You have to hang around while respondents complete the survey. Otherwise, they're not going to do it. You have to assure them that the response was important for the study. So it kind of triples the time to do these surveys, and that needs to be kept in mind. Overall, we found across the 10 buildings, the framework that we had developed was flexible and customizable, both for buildings that had BMS and all, and for buildings that were data poor. Then I think of the final message I would like you to take away is that building performance evaluation in India cannot just be driven by certification requirements of green buildings. Because you're going to get a building rated, you also need to do BBE. I think that would influence a very small part of the building stock. What you really need is support from national policy to incentivize the study of real performance of buildings, because without having that real data, you can't have evidence-based policies, which is what India urgently needs, given the scale of development and urbanization that is happening at the moment. And we must ensure that the building stock that we will have in the next 20 years is both sustainable and delivering what it was designed to do. Thank you very much. Here are my details. My email is here. Please feel free to get in touch. From the Learn BPE website, you will be able to download our final report, which has all the findings of the project. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the best for the conference.
Thank you, Dr. Rajat Gupta, for your insightful presentation to the research scholars on conducting building performance evaluation studies in Indian context. I am sure that the audience have found it to be a very informative presentation. Now we shall take a short break for a sponsor video, post which we shall proceed to our next speaker.
Ergonomic articulated keyboard station for long working hours. WorkSmart by EBCO, simplifying lives. Slide in, slide out, rotate or lock, easy access of CPU below the desk. WorkSmart by EBCO, simplifying lives. Third generation concealed drawer slides for your furniture. EBCO, simplifying lives. EBCO sleek telescopic drawer slides for quality furniture, much more than most. EBCO, simplifying lives. EBCO, new generation concealed hinge for quality furniture, much more than most. EBCO, simplifying lives. Ergonomic doorknob lock for your bedroom and bathroom doors. EBCO, simplifying lives. Add design aesthetics to your furniture with aluminium profiles and handles. LiveSmart by EBCO, simplifying lives. Space utilization at its best. Wall bed fitting for compact multifunctional rooms. LiveSmart by EBCO, simplifying lives. Now, easy access to your bed storage with ProLift electric bed fitting. LiveSmart by EBCO, simplifying lives. Floor-to-ceiling walk-in wardrobe sliding system. Design it with glass and wooden panels as per your choice. LiveSmart by EBCO, simplifying lives.